What's up, everybody? Welcome to the State of Wild, episode 98, a regular YouTube video web series podcast thingy. My name is Meowth, and as usual, I'm joined by my two good friends and co-host, Roffle and Corbett. How are you guys doing tonight?
Not too bad. A bit of a rough week, but we got some good news today for a change, and some rather exciting news, including an expansion announcement, which we didn't actually get until the weekend, which was a little bit strange. And it's a little bit strange, the timing of it, I think, a lot sooner than people expected. And but a very pleasant surprise, given like what was actually revealed today. So I'm pretty pumped to talk to you guys about it after hearing about it earlier today.
Yeah, I've also had like a little bit of a rough weekend or a rough week, so I'm kind of like IRL, kind of like mentally exhausted and stuff. But always very happy to start getting into the reveal season stuff. It's always fun for me because I'm so far behind when it's revealed at 3 a.m. my time, and so I have to catch up on the reaction. I get nothing in real time, but it's fun going back and just always reading through everyone going like, "Oh my god, like what is this?" And it, like honestly, some of these cards they do feel like a little bit of a fever dream.
Yeah.
But we'll get to them.
Yeah, I mean, let's dive right into it. Today, we got the announcement of the next Hearthstone expansion coming August 2nd. Murder at Castle Nathria. So,
Love it.
I don't know if I'm pronouncing the name of that castle right, but it is a murder mystery theme with characters from, I believe, the latest WoW expansion from Shadowlands, I believe, is what I was told. So people are super hyped for it. After looking at some of these cards, I'm super hyped for it as well.
I'm super hyped for it just based on the theme alone. I didn't play Shadowlands. It was one of the few WoW expansions that actually tempted me to return just because the aesthetics of it were really cool. So getting to experience that in Hearthstone is great. I love old vampire movies. Well, not that old, but like the original Blade was definitely my jam. You gotta love Wesley Snipes slaying vampires. Um, I love what we do in the shadows. So like this is bringing that and then combining it with one of my other favorite pastimes, which is murder mysteries and like kind of giving this Clue vibes, but like because it's Hearthstone, it's a little bit goofy. So it'll probably be similar to the Clue movie, which was phenomenal and one of the few movies that I've seen multiple times. So yeah, I'm really into the aesthetics of this expansion. And it looks like it has some pretty sweet cards that do sweet things. So, like, I don't know the last time I've been this hyped for an expansion, other than maybe like Knights of the Frozen Throne when Death Knights were introduced. Like, legitimately, that's one of the before an expansion actually hits. Like, I'm as excited as I've ever been. I think.
Yeah, Ruffle, talking about watching Clue multiple times. Was that I haven't seen that in a long time, but I do remember there were some multiple endings or something in that. Not to spoil anything, but yeah, it's kind of like a rewatch. You're in the film.
Right, right. It's I mean the ending sequences is easily like the best part of that movie. So if you haven't watched it yet and you ever played the game Clue growing up as a kid, or even if you hadn't, or if you called it Cluedo, I don't care. Just watch that movie. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I love it when Hearthstone gets goofy like this. Like I've talked about this before. My favorite expansions are theme wise and stuff. Skull and Metz Academy going the whole Harry Potter vibe. I really like the Sunken City, the aesthetic of that and everything. And this kind of feels very much like those two. Like it does feel like we are getting goofy. We are taking kind of a fun twist on the WoW stuff. And so yeah, I like all the board game stuff. I like all Clue and all going down this rabbit hole. And yeah, the vampire type aesthetic as well. I've been watching Castlevania on Netflix. So very into that recently as well. So yeah, it should be good.
Yeah. I wasn't super hype about it until I like read the little opening to their announcement, this little paragraph here. And so I just want to read it out to everybody else. And so Sire Denathrius, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right, but he's the host of this party, and he invites his 10 counterparts and enemies to the castle for a dinner party so he can address the malicious rumors that he is hoarding anima, the life energy drained from tortured souls, and used to power the Deadlands. But just after the festivities started, Sire Denathrius was found dead. It seems a gaggle of enemies does not a good dinner party make. Now the illustrious Murloc Home and his trusty sidekick Watfin have been called to solve the case. That sentence right there, that's what got me. And
yeah,
so,
Watfin, yeah.
Yeah, hell yeah. So yeah, like, if you just aren't even excited for the theme, once we get started talking about the mechanics and some of the new cards, I think you guys are going to be just as hype as we are. And so let's talk about some of the new stuff that's coming first before we hop into the cards itself. So let's start with the new keyword, which is Infuse. And so Infuse, basically, if you have a card with the keyword Infuse in your hand, it'll be followed with a number, right? So Infuse 2, Infuse 3, so on, so on. And so what that means is after that number of minions have died on your side of the battlefield, right? So if you say Infuse 2, you need to have 2 creatures die, 2 minions, while that card is in your hand. And if you do, that card upgrades and gets a powerful new effect. Okay, and so one of the examples, we'll go with the boring one here first. It's a 2 mana 2/3 with taunt, but if it has Infuse 3, gain +2/+2. So if you've got 3 other minions that have died, it becomes a 2 mana 4/5 with taunt.
Something important about Infuse, though, is kind of like a corrupt. I believe it actually transforms the card, which is important for the considerations for silence. For one thing, if it's shuffled into your deck for any reason, it's going to retain those buffs. If you raise dead into it, it's going to retain that. So, or if you resurrect it. So, all of those are very important facets because it makes a little bit less fragile than just like a +2/+2 buff in your hand.
All right, and then we also have a brand new card type to talk about. And so brand new to Hearthstone, we have locations. And so essentially what these are cards that are in your deck that you'll play them out onto the battlefield for initial cost. And so the 2 that we've seen today cost 1 mana, so they're pretty simple. And once they're on the battlefield, they have a durability, but you can use them for free. Similar, they said, the UI is very similar to a hero power, where you'll click on the location and then you'll click on whatever you want to target with it. And you get to use that for free once a turn, but then it has a 1-turn cooldown. So let's say you play a location on turn 1, you can immediately use it, or you can wait until turn 2. So let's say you immediately use it on turn 1, then you cannot use the location on turn 2, but then you can use it again for free starting on turn 3. And so we'll dive into a couple of the specifics here. So Cora held a Q&A with some of the, explaining a little bit more about how these card types work. So basically, these will take up a slot on the board. So normally you have 7 minion slots. These will take up one of those 7, similar to the Juggernaut. And I believe they currently cannot be interacted with, similar to stuff like the Juggernaut or the Quest Portal. And they have mentioned that these are things that are going to be recurring in Hearthstone in future expansions. So these are not card types that are similar or unique just to this one expansion. So they said they're going to be more popular or more present than hero cards, but less prevalent than weapons. So this is just a brand new mechanic that they've introduced, and it seems pretty sweet. So like in this expansion, these locations are all different parts of Sire Denathrius's castle, where the murder might have taken place, right? And so it's pretty sweet with that. How are you guys feeling about, first of all, the keyword and this new card type as well?
Well, again, the new card types really tie into the whole clue aesthetic of it. So it's like you're investigating the different locations and trying to figure out where it was that Mr. Body was murdered. But yeah, I'm all for new card types anytime. And hearing, first of all, that we get them in this new expansion is great. Like Colossal Minions were sort of a new card type, but it's still a minion at its core, right? So that's like, it's good, but not as exciting as this. Is this something that people have been looking for a long time, like a long-term persistent activated effect? It does go away, like it has durability like a weapon might, so you do lose it after a certain point. So yeah, I'm excited for it. It adds something new and interesting to Hearthstone, and I'm excited that it's going to be a recurring thing too, because I think a lot of times, we've talked about this before, if you just get a keyword or just get, even like, for instance, Colossal Minions, like those are things that I would like if we got them more often. I don't want them to just be a one-off, because there's like, I don't know, there's interesting potential there. So getting upfront confirmation that that's going to be the case makes me more excited for this, because I mean, hero cards, I guess, are the last time we got a new card type, and that was in Knights of the Frozen Throne.
Yeah, I really like these in general. They obviously have some comparison to the objectives that we just saw, in terms of like being something that you play out and then they kind of have this continuous effect. Obviously, there's probably a lot more like decision making going on, right? There's more, or just the fact that they're so cheap, and they have that cooldown, kind of makes them really interesting. I think that is generally pretty interesting cool cards. So they all seem like simple, but have a lot of depth to them, which is generally the type of card that I'm usually a huge fan of. So yeah, I mean, getting a new card, exciting, like it. Hadn't heard that they are going to be recurring, so that's news to me, and it's also really interesting going forward as well.
Yep. So if you guys are listening and want to know more about locations, I believe Kibler is going to be doing kind of a reveal stream on Friday on the Play Hearthstone channel, where they're going to be talking a lot about locations, playing a lot of locations, probably revealing a few more locations as well. And so make sure you guys check that out if you guys want to know more about that. But like the guys have said, I'm super hype about locations. The two that we've seen are like pretty simple, and maybe not strong enough for Wild, but we do have 8 more to go, and so I'm really excited to see. They said in general they're trying to keep the location, since they are a brand new card type, simple for this first pass, but it's a lot of room for design where they can do some pretty cool stuff with it. So excited about that. And then to wrap it up, it kind of does feel like we're getting a return to the vibe of Mercenaries, where we have these 10 characters that are the suspects in the murder for this dinner party. And so each class has this evil enemy of Sire Denathrius that they're going to be talking about and focusing on a little bit alongside Murloc Homes. And so with all of that said, let's go ahead and dive into to some of the cards, starting first off with the brand new free legendary that everybody gets, and probably the card out of everything that we saw today is generating the most conversation because it is pretty insane. Let's talk about Prince Renathal. So all you have to do is log in, you get a free copy of this card, and he's a 3-mana 3/4, so a spider tank with some pretty insane text. Your deck size and starting health are 40, which means you get to play a 40 card deck. I guess get to is maybe not the right words. You have to play a 40 card deck, but you start at 40 life. And so I know both of these things are things that people have been asking for a long time in Hearthstone. We finally have the effect now. Before, I know, Roffle, you've already played with this, but what were y'all's like initial impressions when you guys saw this card revealed?
My initial impression is that it's very much like a Reno Jackson type card. You have a deck building cost that you have to pay because 40 cards is a downside almost exclusively. There are a few maybe fringe case exceptions, but for the most part, adding more cards to your deck makes your draw order significantly more inconsistent, and as a result makes most decks a lot worse. You would rather have fewer cards most of the time than more cards. So adding more cards to your deck is a downside. The upside is plus 10 health, which, could be relevant in a highly aggressive metagame, especially against a deck in the wild format like Pirate Rogue, which theoretically does fizzle out eventually, right? They only have so many copies of Swordfish. So in that matchup, that extra health could matter. It could get you, out from under a smite before he comes down because of that nerf as well. So like there are some instances where this is definitely helpful, right? There are some decks where this is definitely helpful. But again, you have to recognize that there is a cost associated with it. It's not a good thing to add 40 cards to your Reno deck. There are 10 cards that are worse that wouldn't make the cut, and therefore are making your deck slightly worse, if only slightly, as a result of that. So you don't just off rip jam this into every single Reno deck. You need to actually think about the cost associated with this. So if you're running a combo, definitely don't want this card. If you're running anything that basically ends the game on the spot, you would rather just get to that thing and do that thing and win that game. Fatigue has been irrelevant in Wild for a very long time, and this card isn't going to suddenly make that relevant. I'm sorry, but it's not. You might consider it if be going for a super polarized deck like an Odd Warrior without the quest, just straight Fatigue Odd Warrior, and you're just trying to like get one over on a bunch of aggro decks, then yeah, sure, maybe you consider this. But even then, you're doing it for the health, not the extra cards, because you're going to win that game in fatigue no matter what, because aggro has ridiculous card draw right now. So, like, it's a matter, the way that you evaluate this card is plus 10 health worth adding plus 10 cards? And I think without a lot of testing and a lot of data, we can't actually come to a conclusion. I'll give you my opinion on it after you guys talk about it, since I actually was able, I think, the only one to play the card earlier today. But like, that was my first impression, and yeah.
Yeah, my reaction was kind of like threefold. It was wow, okay, like that's weird. Like, okay, we're getting this. The second one was this. Oh, so it's like Reno. You know, I think that Reno comparison is very apt, and you know, I think it's probably just the gut reaction that a lot of people had to seeing this card, right? Like, it draws that same comparison. And then the third one was people are gonna love this. Like, this is gonna, like, similarly to Reno Jackson, not in terms of just like the deck building and like the restriction, the type of effect, you know, the anti-aggro nature of the card, the greedy sort of deck building and stuff that it promotes. The biggest thing that I immediately thought of was just that people are going to play this so much. Like, this is gonna be one of the most popular cards, I think, in Hearthstone's history, particularly for, you know, a lot of those players that do already play like the Reno archetypes and are kind of perhaps the let's say like long-term engaged casual player, right? Like the type of people that just queue up their favorite deck at like a Diamond 10, whatever they want to play jank. I think those people are going to absolutely adore this. So those were my main like immediate thoughts. And then I started thinking about the power level. And like Roffle said, I haven't had the chance to actually play the card yet. But, you know, like he outlined pretty clearly that the downside is huge, right? And we're probably not going to know exactly how good or bad it is until we until we get to see it, right? Like, until we actually get to see it in action. Personally, I think that in general, it's going to be not worth it, but there are some interesting kind of fringe synergies that kind of might make it a bit better than you might expect. So Molten Giant is a very interesting one because 20 health Molten Giant, like, you know, you can get it down to 20. That's going to be very, very difficult for a lot of aggro decks to combat. So, you know, it's hard enough playing around the Molten Giants and things when they go into 10, but if they only have to go to 20, it's basically impossible. And that can be really, really huge for a deck like a Giants Warlock and something like that. So, there's stuff like that. There's also things like Hemet, right? Hemet's pretty interesting, where you get this full health bonus, but you can also, like, kind of cut away a lot of the chaff that would be in the deck, and you can kind of mitigate that in something like a Mechathun Warlock or something. So, I don't know. Either way, I think that people are going to love it. I'm interested in its competitive applications and stuff, and just kind of a wacky one that I'm a little bit surprised actually made it out of the custom Hearthstone subreddit. I mean, big shout outs to the 1,000 people that have already made this one up over the past few years.
Yeah, my initial instincts were, like you mentioned, people are going to absolutely love this card, right? It's going to be like the Ticketus, where like it might not be good, but people are going to shove it in all their decks because they absolutely love the like payoff of it. But then I like started actually thinking, and I was like, I don't know. I think there's two classes that have like 40 playable cards, like 40 quality cards in the format, and I think that's Druid, and I think that's Warlock. And I don't like Demon Hunter definitely doesn't have 40 playable cards. Like Mage right now doesn't seem very good at all, but I can totally see people playing like LPG Mage with this, you know, Prince Renethal, just to discount even more creatures. Like I went through all the classes and I was like, outside of Druid and Warlock, I'm struggling to find 30 playable cards, and so like this downside of going to 40 feels really bad. That being said, I'm going to play nothing but this card until the next expansion comes out, but competitively, I did see a lot of talk about the Darkly Warlock or the Giants Warlock, where now you can pretty safely Sea Devil Gigafin people. You do have to draw that, and it's a little bit harder in a 40 card deck. But I think in general, the places that this is going to see play are probably going to be in classes that have a lot of built-in card draw or tutors, right? So like Warlock has the life tap because life tap is busted. Druid has a ton of card draw. And like maybe something like Shaman, because they have a bunch of ways to tutor out specific cards from their deck. we might see a competitive deck that runs Renthal and like a Reno Shaman, or maybe just like a free Shaman with this card, so that you can fit in all of the tech cards that you want to. But outside of that, like I don't know any classes that I like that have 40 playable cards to begin with.
So I can share my experience with you guys now if you'd like. I'm one of those people that just loves this card. Like I think it's interesting. It gives you a little bit of breathing room against aggro, but like my problem was I spent about 3 hours playing exclusively this card, and I queued into like one aggro deck all day because everybody else was playing this card, and that aggro deck steamrolled me on turn 4. So thanks for the 40 health, Renethal. But for the most part, yeah, I don't know that this will be a super competitively viable deck. I think people dramatically underestimate the downside of a 40 card deck. I mean, some of that tends to be something that's like common with inexperienced card game players, but that cohort of players probably won't care. They just want to have the 40 health and give the double birds to aggro and move on. So I queued almost like a lot of my opponents, maybe half of my opponents were playing this card in their deck today, and I had some of the most fun I've ever had in Hearthstone. So I'm happy about this. Like it's cool. I don't care if it's competitively viable or not. I think there is some potential, especially like Corb said, I was playing a Reno Paladin today, which to Meowth's point, like, I mean, your typical Reno Paladin is just a pile of 30 cards anyway, so why not bump it up to a pile of 40 cards and you're fine. You've got some cute interaction there with the call. Didn't really come up all that much. Because then you can Reno after it, but like it's running Molten Giants was the big thing. So I think the most viable deck that's actually going to be running it is, like Corb said, probably that Dark Glare Giants Warlock, where 10 is getting pretty sketchy. If you're stopping there, you might be forced to run like Sun Fury Protector in your deck to not die to aggro, and you don't really want to do that in the current metagame because like Rogue exists. But 20 is a lot more than 10. In fact, it's twice as much. So like getting to 20 is a lot, safer than dropping yourself to 10 and then like frantically healing afterwards. So I think that's probably a legitimate use case for it. In addition to, I think you'll probably see it in Reno Paladin as well, just for the call Reno interaction, giving basically doubling up on the effect, right? It essentially takes you to about 40 or so if you can get the call down early enough or preserve some of that armor. But I would be hesitant in a LPG mage because a lot of the successful LPG mages run like an Alex Draza or a Cloud Prince combo that again just want to end the game. So you're better off just ending those games. You're not taking, even in LPG mage, you're actually going out of your way to not take those games to fatigue because you have Luna in your deck so that you can draw those cards and drop a bunch of stuff. So yeah, despite a lot of Renethal mirror matches, I had exactly one game go to fatigue, and that was like an absolute anomaly because my opponent did a whoopsie and should have ended the game much sooner than that because it's Wild Hearthstone in 2022. They legitimately played double Octosari, and that was the only reason I went to fatigue. So,
oh my god!
Yeah, they did a bit of an oopsie. So like that was again the exception rather than the rule. Like this card alone is not going to make games go to fatigue because like there are just so many efficient big bodies. Somebody's going to get a board lead eventually and just like bash the other person in the face, and that's consistently what happened even in greedy Reno mirrors that I was playing all day.
Yeah, I mean, I think regardless of the competitive viability of this card, I think it's automatically a success, just because like people love this card already, and it's got a lot of people talking, and so like immediately, I think it's a success when it comes to design.
It's a neutral card too. It's a free neutral legendary. You can add this card to any deck if you really wanted to. I don't recommend doing that, but theoretically you could, and I think that like that in and of itself is pretty sweet, right? Like if you want to do, you could just jam this in whatever you want for a bit of breathing room into aggro. And it's a decent body. Like drawing this card is less likely because you have more cards in your deck. So even if you don't necessarily want to draw it, you're not necessarily likely to draw it. And then I guess the last thing is that like maybe if Mine Rogue or in some cases Pillager becomes a lot more common, like you can consider this in a Rito deck because Mine Rogue in particular, less so Pillager Rogue because I could just like do 60. But like Mine Rogue is somewhat damage cap, so like you could, 28 is an important breakpoint for them, or 24 is an important breakpoint for them. You could force them into getting, requiring the full combo, which is not quite as easy to pull off if you happen to draw too many weapons and not be able to make use of the sketchies, or at least it's not mana efficient if you have to, play both of the weapons and break them on the same turn. So,
yeah, how cute would that be if it became a tech card for stuff like Mind Rogue? Gosh, but yeah, I'm excited for this card. I'm very glad that it's a thing. We'll leave it on one point, I guess. Roffle, can we expect a 45 legendary deck coming soon?
Already happened.
Easy.
45 plus Cthulhu, obviously, plus
obviously.
Plus an Ambassador Phelan in there. Oh my god, it was incredible.
49
I
card
actually,
deck. Goddamn.
because because I dumpstered my rank so much, I actually had a positive win rate with the deck. I believe I was doing well. Like I was just playing the legendaries on curve and smashing people in the face.
Goodness gracious. All right. Let's move on to the next super sweet neutral legendary that we saw today. Let's talk about Murloc Homes and his little sidekick Watfin. If you guys haven't seen the art on it, holy crap, dude. It is Matt Dixon art, so you already know it's quality. But this is another 3-mana 3/4 Murloc with the battle cry. Solve 3 clues about your opponent's cards to get copies of them. So I believe my understanding of this, and feel free to interrupt and correct me if I'm wrong, guys. So basically, the first clue is going to show you 3 cards, and you have to pick one of the 3 that started in your opponent's opening hand. Then you get offered a second clue, which is what card is currently in your opponent's hand. And then the third clue is what card is currently in your opponent's deck. And so I believe if you only solve 1 out of the 3, you only get the 1 card. But if you solve all 3 correct, you get all 3 cards. I believe that is my understanding of that. But assuming that's correct, this is a 3-mana 3/4 discover 3, which is kind of nutty. In Wild, I'm not sure how great that's going to be, but like I feel like this is just another one of those super sweet neutral legendaries that has a ton of upside and is going to be super sweet to play.
I mean, my 45 legendary deck needed a lot of help with its curve, so the 3-mana slot is wide open for it. I wasn't clear, like I'm honestly not entirely sure, so this isn't a correction, this is my lack of uncertainty. I watched the release video and it seemed like you maybe had to get all 3 right to get in order to get the 3. Like you only get it cancels things out if you miss one. It was kind of my understanding of it. So I don't know if you get to move on to the second and third clue if you miss the first one, for instance.
Yeah, the way I'm reading through Discord, it seems like that is it. You have to get all 3 right.
Okay. So that makes it significantly more challenging. It's like maybe not even a third of the time. Like it depends on how. The first one's pretty easy to solve, right? Because if there's a chance they've already played that card. The second 2 become a little bit more difficult because I don't know if it's showing just cards like Glitter Moth or Glitter Root or whatever. Glimmer Root. I don't know, whatever that priest card is. I don't know if it's showing cards that potentially aren't even in your opponent's deck at all. Like that would be easy to eliminate in most cases. So I don't know the details of this, but like having to solve all 3 sounds pretty difficult after the first one. Like the first 2 I think appear to be the easiest, right? Because first one they could have played it. Second one they could have like bounced something or added something to hand that you might have gotten some information about, so you could get some info there. The third one's just kind of a dice roll, I guess. I don't know. Like that seems, and that it seems difficult to get all 3. So I think it's, if that's the case, that's going to be a tough set of parameters to hit.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm assuming that it's gonna be cards that are from your opponent's deck, like for all the options. If it's just like random cards like Glimmerroot, then it obviously gets a lot better, right? Because, it'll be a lot more obvious, like when you're offered like, oh, do they have Wisp in there or what? But yeah, assuming it works like that, right? Assuming that it's cards from the deck, it seems really, really tough. to kind of get it early in the game. And wild games go pretty quick, and you're gonna have to play this early to really make use of it. So, I don't know, like weird card, cool card. Don't really see it being good enough, but we also need some clarity on exactly how it works before judging too much, I think.
Yeah. So let's assume that it's super easy to get all three, right? Let's say
insane.
Would a 3-mana 3/4 add 3 cards from your opponent's deck or class be worth running in wild?
Sometimes
I think so. I'd play in like I don't know, like Murloc Shaman or something. Like get 3 resources for 3/3/4 is like still pretty good, even if they're not like amazing cards by themselves. It's still like a lot of gas, for not too much of a tempo loss at that point.
Right. I mean, that's why I think it's going to be very difficult, and why it has such high like requirements in order to get them. Because even like 3 mana add a card to your hand, even if it's only one, like that's still a premium quality card. Like that's better than a Madame Lazul, which is a class specific card for one thing, and like has worse stats. So like that's, you know, I really, yeah, it's a it's a pretty big you know, pretty large amount of value even if you get 1 or 2 cards. So I think it, you know, even if, and so I think it probably is the 3 like Corb said, and then also on top of that, like, I don't know, probably has to be difficult, otherwise it would just be absolutely nutty.
Yeah. Well, here's hoping it's actually playable, like if you get the cards for just 1 or 2, because then I'd actually be wanting to put this in wild decks, which is like a positive, because I think this card's just sweet.
I think it's confirmed you have to get all 3 guesses. I'm just not sure what cards are actually like the ones that you guess on.
All right, that's fair. I'm hoping it's good, because like, I mean, look at this card. Like, come on.
Yeah.
I want it to be good so I can play it and have some fun with that. And last but not least, for these neutral minions, we talked about Murloc Homes and Prince Renthal. We gotta talk about a little bit of a stinker here. Priest of the Deceased. This is a 2-mana 2/3 with taunt. That has the new keyword Infuse on it. So 3 friendly minions have to die in order to get the bonus here. It is Infuse 3, gain +2/+2. Seems like an arena card. I don't really know anywhere that we want to play this, like not even in something like Cute Lock. So if it's all right with you guys, let's move on to the next card here. So let's start with our first location, starting in Warrior. Let's talk about Sanguine Depths. So this location costs 1 mana. And then just to kind of rehash what locations are, you play them out, and then you can activate it for free. You can activate it the turn that you play the location as well. Once you activate it, you cannot activate it the next turn. It has a little bit of a cooldown timer on it, and it does have durability on it, so you can only use it 3 times, and it takes up a minion slot. So that being said, Sanguine Depths is a 1-mana location with 3 durability. Deal 1 damage to a minion and give it +1 attack. So essentially an Enrage enabler for free that you can set up. So how are we feeling about Sanguine Depths?
I mean, it's also just like Enrage the card, right? Or does Enrage give +2 attack? But
I think Enrage is like deal 2 or 2 attack. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. That's the card I'm thinking of. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's like you talked about early. The locations are going to be pretty vanilla this time around, like intentionally so. This effect is, you know, kind of cute in like a patron style deck, maybe, but like those decks aren't good. So unless you're like a dedicated patron warrior pilot, which, you know, I've been known to bring the deck out every once in a while, and it farms aggro if you build it the right way. Aside from that, I don't see much use for this. You know, we've kind of seen this effect on a lot of cards in the past, and it's been pretty disappointing historically.
Yeah, not amazing. Obviously, Acolyte of Pain, Battle Rage, like these are some of the synergies that are kind of working around. As well as just kind of just being a little bit of a ping, whatever, against like a pirate deck, right? But yeah, it doesn't really seem too outstanding, so it's whatever. It's fine.
All right, just fine. What about Decimator Ulgra? So this is one of the warrior legendaries. I believe this is one of the people that have shown up at the party and is being accused, if my understanding is correct.
It's Mancrick's wife. We finally found her, Meowth. We
Oh.
finally found her.
I didn't even make that connection. It makes sense now reading the
She's
name.
back for revenge too.
Yeah. She does look pretty
Oh,
angry.
the
Not gonna lie.
flavor text is just "found her!" exclamation point in all capitals. So yeah.
I also do love how it is a 3/7 to match the nerfed Olgra stats from Mankrik. I wonder if she was
Do you
originally a
think-
310.
That's not actually
yeah.
Olgra though. That is enraged Mankrik because he found her body. And I believe
Yeah,
the
but they have to
Shadowlands.
match, right?
Yeah,
They have
right.
to match.
But
Yeah.
lore-wise, I believe the Shadowlands is kind of like the afterlife in Warcraft lore.
Okay.
From my understanding, that's why she's there. So some of the people that we're seeing, I guess, are maybe dead characters. I don't know. I'm not up to date on my Warcraft lore, but like that was my impression from the Shadowlands release.
Come on, Roffle. That's the only reason we have you on the show is for the lore. Come on.
Well, you should have gotten Easy then instead of me. Like, what were you thinking?
Fair enough. Anyways, Olgra, 6 mana, 3/7. Battle Cry, gain +1/+1 for each damaged minion. So that is both yours and the opponent's. And then attack all enemies. So that includes the enemy portrait. They did say that it's not in play order, right? So it is just random order from the opponent, meaning that it's not always going to guaranteed hit the opponent's face. So probably like a 6 mana, like 5/9, 6/10, maybe.
Really optimistic.
Yeah, I don't know. Potentially clearing the board as well. So I know we just had a little bit of hesitation here. How you guys feeling about it?
Not a wild card,
Yeah.
I'll say.
I mean, that's a big chunk of damage. It's in some situations it's a like mini Deathwing, but Deathwing wasn't very good. And I don't know. You play a Whirlwind before this, but then you're like playing Whirlwind in your deck. Follow it up with a Blood Razor. Maybe it's good, but what deck is that exists other than maybe a Patron Warrior? You can finally get charge damage to face again. The fact that it does go face and can get big numbers does kind of make it scary. Maybe with a Bran, there might be a cute like Mark combo with Whirlwind, Bran, Olgra, if there are enough minions on the board. But like the conditional nature of it is what's concerning, right? Because first of all, that's 10 mana. So that aside, though, like the games where you're going to get to 10 mana, the opponent doesn't prioritize playing minions, and then like if you're a combo deck, you're not. So there are a lot of things that make this card difficult. But I think it's real cool. So I don't know. I'll try that Bran combo, and I'll probably lose my mind doing it once again. But I don't know. Probably not like you said, probably not a wild playable card.
Yeah. I have these dreams of like one day in Wild there'd be like an enraged tempo warrior similar to like I think there was a deck similar to that in Standard at one point with the like the Blood of Brave style effects where like you just ping it and it becomes like a 5/6 instead of a 2/6. And so I can dream of a deck where like that's eventually going to exist in Wild, and I feel like this is perfect in that deck, but that deck is very far from existing right now, and so it feels like Olgra is just going to be just on the shelf for a very long time. All right, let's talk about the next spell here that we had revealed. Let's talk about Door of Shadows. This is a rogue spell. 1 mana shadow spell. 1 mana draw spell. Infuse 2. Add a temporary copy of it to your hand. And so I believe that the copy lasts until the end of your turn. And so you get basically 2 copies of the spell, potentially. And so I think maybe just we can evaluate base level and then the transformed upgraded level, because at its base it is technically a tutor for a spell, right? If that is relevant in a deck that you're building. I don't know exactly what deck that might be, but we know that effects like this are powerful. And then if you are running a deck with minions, you can upgrade it, get 2 copies of that spell, hopefully an important spell if you're trying to tutor it. And so Door of Shadows, I think it's actually a pretty intriguing card here. How are you guys feeling about it?
I don't know. Initially I went to Pillager, and then I realized like you're not having minions die, so that seems a little bit difficult. The then because when you think about tutoring specific cards, especially spells, and especially in Rogue, where a lot of your spells are your enablers or your engine for getting through your deck and drawing your cards, it makes sense to think about combo decks. But like even a Mine Rogue doesn't run a lot of minions because you want to run Knolls. That might have some potential in this, just because of the fact that you're not going to want to play cards in the early game to begin with to like get to your Knolls. But like, I don't know, like you have to draw this really early and have your 2 Knolls die because you don't have a whole lot of other minions in your deck. Seems like a pretty quality card in some instances, or it has some potential, but like I don't know, I can't think of a home for it right now, and so maybe that means it's not as high quality as I'm thinking of if it's not able to just like immediately force its way into some of these established decks. I don't know. It's seems like it has some potential depending on what you want to do with it. I don't know. It could be like interesting in a super high roll smokescreen rogue. Like just draw into the smokescreen, rip it for 1. You don't care about like the effect. Play the trickster and have a blast. Like, I don't know. That seems pretty scummy and could be worth considering because you're probably only running like a handful of spells in that deck anyway.
Yeah, I'm very interested in this card. I think it's very high quality. Just at a first look. Obviously, it wants to be paired with cheap spells, right? Like, because you obviously need to be able to play it and then get the worthwhile effect. Fortunately, it's Rogue, so there's lots of cheap spells. A home that I think of off the top of my head is Quest Rogue.
Yeah.
Perhaps like doubling up on Shadow Step seems like very very tempting. Extra preps if you're playing. Like getting an extra copy of Prep, maybe Prep Swindle, like Prep Swindle Shadow Step, maybe just like those 3 as of spells kind of thing. That seems pretty interesting. Even just like in an aggro pirate rogue, I'm kind of like I'm going through the Rolodex in my head, right? Because the infuse part of the effect is going to be very very easy to hit. And so yeah, this card being just essentially a 1 mana draw 2, a lot of the time, right? It kind of means that you can kind of go for like very very high tempo spells and payoffs and things like that. So I don't know. I'm very, very intrigued by this. I think it's strong and wouldn't be shocked at all if it had managed to find a home in some sort of wild deck.
Yeah, it feels very abusable. I think my head went towards Quest Rogue first as well, right? Like you said, Shadow Steps, Preps, even stuff like Secret Passages, just doubling it. 2 Secret Passages is really good. If you can hit like 3 or 4 in a game, that sounds absolutely insane. So yeah, Door of Shadow is definitely a card to keep an eye on. Excited to see what we can do with that. All right, so let's move into Shaman. People may or may not be a fan of the archetype that seems like it's getting pushed here in Shaman this expansion. I know it's one of those polarizing archetypes, and so it does look like that Shaman is getting a lot of Evolve Shaman support, and also Devolve support. So let's first of all start with our second location here, first one for Shaman. Called Muck Pools. So this is another 1 mana 3 durability location. Transform a friendly minion into one that costs 1 more. So basically the card Mutate that you get to use 3 times for 1 card. Seems a lot higher quality than the Warrior location we just saw. Seems pretty powerful. How are you guys feeling about it?
Yeah. No, it's definitely better than the Warrior one. I think that's clear. Just because like it has an archetype that has been fringe playable at times that it can immediately slot in. A lot of issues with that deck is that like it doesn't really have much to do with its mana in the early game. The early game at least used to be wait until I draw the bloom, the bunny, and the weapon. For people that don't like Evolve Shaman, one of the good things, or a little bit of hope for you is that Lightning Bloom was nerfed, and that was kind of a big part of what made that deck go for a while. So it's not being able to cheat that extra mana could be a big deal since they're printing some extra support. So we may have dodged a bit of a bullet with the preemptive Lightning Bloom nerf. I doubt that that's what they had in mind because it was very toxic in Big Shaman already. So you don't need another reason other than that. But it's probably good, especially considering the other spell that Shaman has revealed already, which has a mana investment of it. You kind of you want that bloom in in that instance. But I think Muck Pools is fine. Probably worth a slot. Definitely better than Thrall. But like, I don't know. Thrall is a bad card, so like that's not really much of a fair comparison. But like, you're already considering running Mutate in that deck. You're probably running it in some instances, depending on your build, especially if you're either running Zentimo or the Rush guy. So I mean, this card is good with Corridor Creeper. If you get a good set of Infuse cards that are related to Evolve, you've got some nice synergy there because you're already trying to kill stuff off for the Corridor Creeper. So I think there is still some potential for Evolve Shaman in this expansion, even without the Lightning Blooms.
Yeah, this is super, super strong. I think we are getting kind of like a baseline of like what type of effect and how effective the locations are, right? Where we got the sort of inner rage light for warrior, and then we have kind of a mutate. So we are kind of looking at previous zero cost card type effects. It seems like, but yeah, this is really, really good. Evolve Shaman runs on such a tight window, basically, where you don't have a ton of mana to play with a lot of the time. You're especially now without Bloom, right? And so at the same time, it's kind of hard to develop evolve targets and the evolve effect on the same turn a lot of the time. And so being able to kind of like preload that is what makes this really, really good. It's a big part of also what makes the weapon Knuckles really, really strong as well, having that preloaded effect. So I think this is great. But like Roffle said, Bloom gone. That was kind of a big part. I think half my wins when I would play Evolve Shaman came off like Bloom Bunnies Evolve. So that's no longer really an option. But yeah, obviously just a super powerful effect compared to the Warrior one. And so I am interested to see moving forward. Are we going to see more like this? Or are we going to see something a little bit closer to the Warrior for the other classes?
Yeah. I mean, maybe with Bloom gone, there's some hopium that Flesh Shaper can get reverted back to 7 and not be absolutely gross. I know what I'm saying. It's okay.
That ship has sailed a long time ago. Man. They're not going to revisit those old. Old
I said hopium for a reason. Okay, come on. All right, let's talk about the legendary here. Lady Vaj is back. Baroness Vaj, 4-mana, 3/6 legendary Naga. If this would transform into a minion, summon that minion instead. So essentially, kind of the play pattern here is you play your location, and then you go turn 3 or turn 4, play the Vaj, use the location on here. You get the 3/6 Vaj, and you get the random 5-drop that you would evolve into. And so there's like the dreams of play this on 4, turn 5 unstable evolutions, get 5 drops. I know that's dreamland, but this card seems absolutely nutty in evolve decks. It also has some really cute synergy with stuff like it can't get devolved, it can't get hexed, it can't get polymorphed, which is pretty cute. And so yeah, Baroness Vaj, it seems like a slam dunk in all of these Evolve Shaman archetypes.
Yeah, and like in Wild, we also have Mutate, right? So even on turn 4, you could make a Baroness Vaj,
yeah,
and at least one 5-mana card, depending on how many mutates you have. It generating the extra bodies also, makes your evolves a little bit better on later turns because you could like mutate the Baroness and then play an evolve, and then you've got 3 minions now just from one card, or I guess 3 cards. But like turning a mutate into a 5-mana card alone or a 5-mana minion is already pretty good, right? Like, and then that Evolve Shaman struggles when it doesn't have enough bodies on the board. This generates bodies instead of like cycling bodies. So yeah, there's definitely some potential. It's also, she's got a pretty sturdy caboose, so like it's hard to remove with just minion damage, right? And like you said, can't really effectively be transformed. Not that those are really like a common concern right now, but like in some cases that might matter. Especially if Evolve Shaman does become popular and there are a lot of Evolve mirrors, for instance. So yeah, definitely a card to keep an eye on, and definitely worth just jamming into your Evolve deck because of the synergy it has with all of the cards that you're already playing.
All right, let's talk about another potentially really good card here for Evolved Shaman deck. Let's talk about Primordial Wave. So a 3 mana nature. I said potentially. Come on.
Okay,
Um,
okay.
it's a 3 mana nature spell. Transform enemy minions into one that costs one less. So basically, devolve, and friendly minions into ones that cost one more. So basically, evolve. So it's evolve, devolve combined into one card. It is important to note it is a nature spell for Dungeoneer tutoring. I mean, Corb, you gave me the How bad do you think this card really is?
Oh, I think it's really bad. Yeah, I don't like this at all. You know that thing I was talking about, how, Shaman has to be able to stack the board and evolve at the same time, and how it's such a tight window, and yeah, this costs 3. So it's gonna be kind of like very situational where you're able to actually maximize the effect from both parts of it, right? Like, it's hard that you're gonna have a minion on board that you want to evolve, and the opponent has stuff that you want to devolve, and this is all happening at the same time as your 3 mana spell. Very, very expensive. So not a big fan of this one, and you just want to be pushing that curve lower with mutate, evolve, and even like revolve. Is a very similar effect, right? Like, it's not as good, obviously. It's not upping your minions by 1, but in terms of like a mass silence effect and a mass changeover for your own cards, it is so much better. I do understand that doesn't have the nature tag and this does, but I really don't think that's enough to push it over the edge at all. Like, I think this is just not very good.
Yeah, I think without Lightning Bloom existing anymore, this is just not like a card that fits the speed of the wild format right now. And like Corb said, like, Evolved Shaman needs to go fast in order to win games, because like that's its benefit, is a giant like leap in tempo by taking advantage of the evolve quickly. And turn 6 is too late if you're like thinking about doing this, like bunnies plus this on turn 6. That's not going to win you any games of Hearthstone. Like, you're dead on turn 6. So yeah, that's not going to do it. So yeah, it's nice that you're able to like condense cards, 2 cards into a single card, but you're probably just not running Devolve in Evolve Shaman anyway, right? Because like Corp said, Evolve is probably just better because cheaper, and like the only benefit of, and actually, like, one of the few times that you want to play Devolve in Evolve Shaman is so that you can remove your opponent's taunts and bash them in the face with your minions. And like,
Yep.
this doesn't allow you to do that, because then you don't get minions that can attack, so you kind of lose that.
Well, just get
that
charge
advantage.
minions. Come on.
Yeah, just get exclusively charge minions. Problem solved. But like, you could just evolve into charge minions and double your damage in that case. So like, I mean, that's still not a solution. I think you just like.
It's not a good sign when you talk more and more through a card and you keep coming up with reasons why it's actually worse than you thought.
Yeah, that's a good point.
All right. I think that's a sign to move on to our 10th and final card here that got revealed today. Let's talk about Suspicious Usher. 1 mana, 1/3 priest minion. Battlecry, discover a legendary minion. If your opponent guesses your choice, they get a copy. So basically, this is a 1 mana, 1/3, add a legendary minion to your hand. And then at the beginning of your opponent's turn, they get the option to, they see the same 3 legendaries that you see. If they pick the right one, they also get a copy of it. So a pretty weird card, but it's a 1 mana, 1/3, add a legendary minion to your hand. So like, how bad can it be?
Oh, it's terrible, but I love this card. Like, the random legendaries are, especially in Wild, are not something that you really want to be adding to your hand, and if you're like actively looking to win games. But there's a lot of potential for fun with this card. I think that like oftentimes, I don't know, it's kind of got like maybe like a, I don't know, mind games to it, where you pick the second best card and then hope that your opponent picks the best card, and then like if they pick the second best card, then you know, I don't know, it just creates a lot of fun instances where I want to play this card, I want it now, give me this card, I want to play some Thief Priest, and I want to add this to it. It's not really a thieving mechanic, but I just like adding cards that like a class shouldn't have to their hand. It's fun for me. Like, it gets a lot of unique interactions, like, maybe Shudderwalk
Well,
in a priest.
well, can you get a
Oh, I
Shudderwock
guess it
because
would
it's
be only priest.
discovered?
Never
Yeah,
mind.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
yeah. I was thinking about that. I was like, wait, yeah, it'll just be praised and neutrals,
It'll only
right?
be
Yeah.
priest. Never mind. This card is terrible. I hate it.
Oh.
Well, I don't want priest legendaries when I'm playing priest.
No, no one would want that. No.
I mean, you
Yeah.
also don't want priest legendaries in general because they all kind of suck. So
I mean, there's some fun things that you can do with priest legendaries and other, like, who doesn't love grabbing an Archbishop Benedictus and like
but then
rogue
just
or
like run
something?
that in your deck. And
Well, if you're not a priest, it's I don't know. The excitement for me is getting a card that I'm not supposed to have.
Sure.
Mhm.
But now that this is taken away from it, like I should have read the card closer. I forget. Always so
Rip
disappointed.
Boogie Monster. He was so close to relevance once again.
I guess neutrals come up as well, but yeah, most neutral legendaries are kind of boring.
yeah. All right. That is 10 cards though. Just the tip of the iceberg of the 135 that we're gonna see. Just how you guys feeling about the brand new expansion? Excited for the cards, like the mechanics. I'm a big fan of the locations. I'm excited to see what they do with that. But just kind of in general, how you guys feeling?
I think the same is true as what I said at the top of the show. This is one of the most excited I've been for an expansion in a very long time. Um, Honestly, like this early with Voyage, I was like, underwater theme. That's not really of interest to me. Then I got to play with the cards, and like I had a ton of fun with it. So I'm hoping this won't be the inverse of it. I'm hoping that like we'll get the best of both worlds. Where I'll be hyped at the beginning, and then I'll get to play the cards, and I'll be extra hyped again. So, but regardless, I think the theme just does nearly everything for me. Some of the cards are cool, and I like the fact that we're getting new card types, and yeah, I'm very excited for it.
Yeah, the infuse mechanic is sort of like a little bit of an inverse of the corrupt, right? Where corrupt kind of like wants you to promote playing more expensive stuff and play sort of like out of sequence like that, whereas infuse is kind of promoting a lot of cheap things and like getting on the board with like many tokens in a lot of ways. So for me personally, like Infuse is much more like my speed. Like I'm very excited about cards like Door of Shadows, for example, in Rogue. And I'm kind of looking forward to seeing what else we get, that kind of thing. And I think that cards like Door of Shadows, right? Like corrupt cards have a lot less potential viability in Wild. Whereas stuff that's dependent on low cost stuff and like early interaction, that has a lot more potential in Wild, I think. So that's exciting. I really like the locations, like Meow talked about. And yeah, looking forward to it. I mean, expansion season always fun, so we'll see. We'll see what we get over the next few weeks.
Yep. All right. So just to rehash, August 2nd, I believe, is the expansion release date. I think it's a couple of weeks earlier than we normally get our fall expansion, but everything has been pushed forward, so I'm not too surprised by that. So I'm excited to see reveal season get underway. I believe the first reveal is July 1st, so that is this Friday, I think, starting with the Kibler stream, and then going for the next couple of weeks after that. So make sure you guys stay tuned to all of that, and I'm excited, man. This is the best time, right, of the Hearthstone cycle, I think, for me, is just like expansion season, theory crafting, all that kind of good stuff. I'm having a lot of fun with it, and I'm excited. I haven't had time to play any games yet with the Prince Renthal, so I'm excited to get some of those games down, play some Reno Renthal deck roulette with 10 Renthal decks, and have a little bit of fun that way. So
Yeah, I'll say the one thing that I'm a little bit concerned about with this set is like the length of time of the reveal season seems to be
Yeah,
a
I was
little
just
bit
thinking
longer
about that.
than the normal. Like we're more than a month out. We're like a month and a half, and so that's gonna, I don't know, that like I know that they seem to be a little bit, like I was just looking through the schedule, they seem to be a little bit more paced out, but like that slow drip also has its own problems associated with it. Like there's going to be gaps, as well as just like that's a long time to maintain hype until like we start to get towards the actual expansion drop. So hopefully they're able to maintain the excitement, because honestly a lot of people are excited. Like you said, the Renathal is a very popular card, even if it we're not super high on its competitive viability. Like everybody loves it, and that's great. I think it's a good one to give away for free. But like we've still got, a month and a half or a month and a week to go before we actually get to play with the cards again. So that's my only concern that I have with it.
Yeah, it feels like a little bit of a throwback because it seems like the past, like for some time now, the reveal schedule has been like very compact, like 2 weeks, and we've kind of been over and done with. And then there's kind of like usually a 1 week little delay. So this is kind of like maybe an extra week, 10 days, and that might not sound like a lot, but it can be a lot. Like that can be a really painful 10 days. But hopefully it's all good and they can figure out a way to like pace it out appropriately.
Yeah. So, I mean, just looking at it, it's July 1st through July 23rd is the reveal season. So, like 22 days.
And then there's
like 10-day gap. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Oof.
hey, it does make it easier for us where we actually don't sit here for 2 hours every episode because we have 50 cards to talk about because they're more paced out. So maybe that's also a silver lining for us, selfishly. But yeah, I hope everybody listening is excited for the new expansion. Hope you guys are getting your Renthal games in, enjoying it as well. Corbin, Roffle, thanks again for joining me. Let the people know where they can find you and your content.
You can find me on Twitch and YouTube at Roffle and on Twitter at RoffleHS.
And you can always find me at Corbett on Twitch or at Corbettgames on Twitter and YouTube.
And you guys can find me at Get Me Out on all those platforms as well. Appreciate everybody listening all the way to the end, and we'll see you guys again next time. Later.